Hello, I'm Asif Rashid with Asif Rashid Law. I'm a Halifax Shabakta criminal defense and immigration lawyer. This video is being recorded on unceded Mi'kmaq territory. In this short video, I'll be speaking about online and digital surveillance by police that could impact you in a protest situation, and will include some context about organizing actions during the COVID-19 pandemic. First off, a bit of a disclaimer. This video contains only legal information, not legal advice. I'm not telling anyone to do or not to do anything in this video. Any scenarios presented are hypothetical and for learning purposes only, not for advice. If you do need legal advice about a particular situation you are facing, you should contact a lawyer or Nova Scotia Legal Aid if you are of low income and it is something that they can cover. First off, I'm not a privacy lawyer or any kind of expert on online privacy. What I can comment on is police powers, potential trouble spots, and your protections under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. First off, getting to your rights. You do have the right to be protected against any unreasonable search under Section 8 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This is supposed to be a safeguard against the police or any government authority simply having the power to pry into your privacy. However, digital and online privacy is not very well protected in Canada. Obviously, anyone can find what you post publicly on social media. The police can make a case against you just by trolling your social media because it's public information. If planning an action where there may be intentional criminal acts such as property destruction or a significant enough disruption to be an unlawful assembly or even a riot, communication on Facebook or other social media can result in possible conspiracy charges. Those are basically planning offenses, planning a criminal offense, or incitement charges, thinking of incitement of a riot. Now, famously in 2011, when the UK was in the midst of anti-police brutality riots, a 24-year-old man named Jamie Council was promoting various sites of action for people to participate in basically riots. Using his Facebook posts, the police mounted a case against him that led to a 4-year prison term. It is also prudent to think about what is being posted from actions. So, moving beyond simply before an action, what about during an action? What's being posted during an action, such as what videos are posted, what pictures are posted, what comments and observations are being posted? Is there evidence being accumulated that could lead to someone being charged? Those are also things that should be kept in mind. Now think about this in terms of the present context of COVID-19 restrictions. Please see my other video for more on this specific subject, which is your rights to protest during the COVID-19 pandemic in Nova Scotia. Now in Halifax and Hants and Lunenburg counties, currently there is a restriction to limit gatherings to 10 people only, and that's if everyone's physically distant or in a bubble. And there are some exceptions to that, and you can go to my other video to find more information about that. So if planning a protest and doing so online, a question that would be useful to ask is there a record being created of a protest that goes beyond the gathering limits or breaks any other of the Health Protection Act rules? Now moving on to some specific areas. What about your location? What about your identity online? People in Canada have the right to be anonymous online. In order for the police to get information from your internet service provider, they must produce a warrant, which is permission from a justice to allow the search. However, in 2020, an Alberta court actually allowed the police to get a person's IP address. Now that's not their personal information per se, it's just the actual IP address. And they were able to do that without a warrant. And that was in a case involving a large amount of fraud. So there is a bit of a shifting landscape going on, which you should keep a watchful eye on. It's also important to keep in mind that even communication on messenger services is not really secure. Messages such as through Facebook Messenger are likely not safe from the police, even without a warrant. If communication forms part of the offense, which is the case of any planning offense, such as planning an unlawful protest or other action, then police may be able to access your messages without a warrant, though they would probably only do this for more serious offenses. Canadian courts have basically not been very favorable to privacy rights on social media when it comes to criminal charges. In 2018, the Ontario Superior Court allowed evidence that was obtained by police from Facebook messages because the communication itself was part of a criminal offense. So what about text messages? So text messages have a much higher privacy protection. Even if you send a text message, you have an expectation of privacy for the sent message. But the police, if they make an arrest, they will likely search the person they're arresting, they'll search that person's cell phone at the time if it's not password protected. And they can look through texts. They can do this if they claim that they're protecting the police, the accused, or the public, or preserving evidence, or discovering evidence, and if they have grounds that the investigation requires the search. In other words, they're going to lose some key evidence if they don't do the search right then. If they overreach beyond anything having to do with the actual charges that they're arresting someone for, simply by fishing through your emails, texts, and social media, etc., then the evidence could be excluded. But if they find evidence of other criminal activity while supposedly looking for information related to the arrests they're making, they might be able to use that as well. So that might sound a little confusing, but basically you need to be on guard when it comes to the police searching your cell. If they have access to it, they can just grab all kinds of information, and then it's all about a context of what can be excluded due to the search being unreasonable. So password protection creates another layer of security and gives an indication that your phone is very private. Also, with modern cell phone tech, it is very hard to get into a password protected phone without going through the service provider. Police actually need a wiretap warrant to be able to track your text messages on your phone on an ongoing basis. So what about Signal? Well, first off, this is not an ad for Signal, just a comment on its safety for organizing purposes. During the protests against anti-black racism and for defunding the police in the wake of the killing of George Floyd, many organizers were using Signal. An article from Amelia Nierenberg of the New York Times on June 11, 2020, Signal downloads are way up since the protests began, got into a lot of the points that have been differentiating Signal from other messenger apps. Signal has been used for years for planning actions due to something called end-to-end encryption. Basically, if the police are able to obtain your SMS messages through your service provider, they can just read them. The difference with end-to-end encryption is that only the device that sent and the one that received the message can decrypt it. So if the police get access, the messages will be encrypted. WhatsApp is also encrypted, but owned by Facebook. And there have been concerns raised in the past, but WhatsApp owners have recently went on the record to state that they are not sharing data with their parent company. So there are obviously lots of apps out there, and I'm not going to attempt to try and review them for security and safety, but just take a look for yourself and look for what truly is end-to-end encryption. So in conclusion, overall, it's important to be careful with online communication when it comes to planning actions where there's a risk that what's being planned may not be legal. The other issue is knowing who you're communicating with. If there is someone in the organizing group who is a police informant or undercover, and they are party to the details, no online privacy protocols will help you.